Tonight, Labor's election promise for a new hydrogen power station in Wyola, while the Liberals pledge to build a new ambulance station in Port Augusta.
From our 7 Spencer Golf Studios, your nightly news with Ruby Kamain begins now.
Good evening. The Upper Spencer Gulf will be considered as the site for a new hydrogen power plant if SA Labor is voted into power in the upcoming state election. The promise has been welcomed by the Wyola City Council, labelling it a game changer.
It's a major multi-million-dollar pledge for the Upper Spencer Gulf. SA Labor announcing Wyola would be the host city for a $593 million hydrogen power facility if elected.
It means jobs, so it's good for employment, it's good for our contractors, that's a diverse bunch that can do a whole range of things, and it will be a world first.
It's set to contain a power plant, electrolyser and storage facility, with renewable energy being the source for the electrolyser. The current member for Giles saying the project would be a real job booster for the city.
So we're going to get a whole new industry base in Wyola. One of the things we've been calling out for years and years is that need to diversify our economy.
The power plant will be one part of a hydrogen hub to be based in the Steel City, with Port Bonython the most likely site. The Wyola City Council welcoming the promise, saying it will help diversify the local economy.
It's going to create hundreds of jobs in constructions, thousands ongoing, and it's going to help to diversify our economy, secure our economy here in Wyola.
Meanwhile, the Liberal Party says the announcement by Labor is a cruel way to give false hope to the people of Wyola.
It has been independently assessed that the cost of their hydrogen plant would be in excess of $1 billion, not the $600 million that they're talking about.
The Energy and Mining Minister also saying the state government already had a plan to develop Port Bonython as a hydrogen export hub.
They're just trying to pretend that they've got a project that sounds nice, that people will think is appealing, but the reality is they don't have anywhere to put it.
In a statement, SA Best's candidate for Giles, Tom Antonio, says he supports the announcement by Labor, but urges them to fully commit to the project if they are elected. Mark Zeta, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Meanwhile, the Liberal government has promised to build a $4.3 million ambulance station in Port Augusta's CBD. Health Minister Stephen Wade travelling to the city today to announce his commitment to emergency services.
Bringing life-saving treatment closer. The Liberal government today announcing it will build a state-of-the-art ambulance station in the heart of Port Augusta CBD if re-elected.
The government is very pleased to be investing $4.3 million in this centre. The tendering process concluded at the end of last month. I'm expecting that we'll have construction completed in about 12 months.
The new station set to be built at 16 Flinders Street at the top of Commercial Road, replacing the current ambulance station built more than 50 years ago.
It will be an upgrade to a block of land that has sat vacant in Port Augusta for 15 or more years, so there's a very positive impact on the CBD out of that as well. But most importantly, we are supporting the ambulance officers who support us.
Having an ambulance station located right here in central Port Augusta is great, because it means that, unlike the previous site, the movements of the ambulances won't be interrupted by rail movements.
The Health Minister says the upgrade is vital as Port Augusta sits at the intersection of major transport corridors. Also saying the ambulance service needs to be well positioned for when a crash occurs on those roads.
Most people who are picked up by an ambulance end up at the hospital, but most people don't start at the hospital, so it's very important that we have the ambulance station closer to where the ambulance needs usually occur.
Edward McCarroll, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Farmers across the Spencer Gulf are now encouraged to take up carbon farming as part of an election promise. The Liberal Party will commit $1 million towards a pilot program if elected. Carbon farming pays landowners money to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and holds carbon in vegetation and soils. Primary Industries Minister David Basham says the program will encourage farmers to adopt the practice. Cobalt Blue's Broken Hill project has been given major project status by the federal government. Member for Parks Mark Coulton, along with other significant representatives, were on hand to make the announcement today, aiming to create more jobs.
Supercharging Australia's role in the global battery supply chain.
Broken Hill's Cobalt Blue project, set to produce high-purity cobalt sulfate, a highly sought-after form of the mineral, given major project status by the federal government.
Allowing a single point of contact with the federal government, recognising that this project has national significance.
Used in the manufacture of lithium-ion batteries, moving Australia second globally as a cobalt producer. The project, earmarked to be up and running in the next few years, aiming to create around 400 new jobs during both the early construction phase and 17 years of full production. It's also promising to guarantee the region's future prosperity and build on Broken Hill's rich mining history.
Broken Hill Cobalt will effectively be of a scale that will catapult Australia into the #2 global producer of cobalt.
CEO Joe Katarovec also acknowledging the support of the community.
We couldn't have got to today without the support of the locals. Adam can talk more about that shortly, but we're also very excited about what it will bring to the local community in the decades to come.
Joshua Mercer, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The federal government has announced a $25 million space infrastructure fund to support 3 launch sites across Australia. The grant will go towards developing more infrastructure at the Whalers Way Orbital Launch Complex.
We'll then start to attract those other companies to the area and create more jobs, and hopefully a future rocket from Whalers Way will go to the moon, you know.
Under the guidance of the Australian Space Agency, Lloyd Damp is hopeful the nation will become a global leader in space launch activities. A learner driver was caught allegedly more than 5 times over the legal alcohol limit for fully licensed drivers in Kadina. At around 5:30 last night, the L Plater was stopped. Kadina police say the vehicle started travelling on the wrong side of the Copper Coast Highway. The 39-year-old Wallaroo man allegedly blew a reading of 0.278. He was issued with a 12-month loss of licence and will be summoned to appear in court at a later date. Still to come tonight, Flinders candidates share their election promises for the Eyre Peninsula, and Wyola residents urged to roll up their sleeves and clean up the city. Welcome back. Several candidates for Flinders have gathered to share their outlooks and promises for the Eyre Peninsula, if successful in the upcoming state election. Our reporter Henry Millick has the story.
Grain Producers South Australia held its first forum last night, giving candidates a platform to voice their beliefs to the people of the region.
Oh, it was exciting, obviously, to be able to get the opportunity to present to a crowd, and it was the grain producers which facilitated it, which is really important as agriculture is the key industry across the whole Eyre Peninsula.
Independent candidate Liz Harberman saying farmers should have access to better communication networks to predict weather events.
Work machinery that relies on GPS, the telecommunications is an issue, and so many things like the weather and the weather stations and stuff, and the GPS systems and phones even.
Regional development also a topic of conversation. The Nationals Party candidate Lillian Pointer suggesting more work needs to be done on the region's roads.
My sons are road train drivers. They see other cars trying to overtake, causing issues in that area. We've got roads breaking away on the side of the roads. It's just a big issue.
Locals who attended the forum had hard-hitting questions around the concerns of regional health. However, Liberal candidate Sam Telfer says his focus is set on improving the healthcare sector across the Eyre Peninsula.
Obviously, regional health is a key issue, and we need to make sure that the services which are delivered to our communities are suitable and not just dictated to us.
With the election just 19 days away, all candidates are working closely in the community to gain voters. Henry Millick, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The owners of the Federal Hotel have been pushing Port Pirie Council to reissue their outdoor dining permit so patrons can drink out the front. In an hour-long meeting with the council, the hotel was unsuccessful in getting another permit, leaving them feeling dry.
It's a tough time to be in hospitality. Federal hotel owners Mark and Kylie Phillips have been wanting to turn the footpath into an outdoor dining area so they can recuperate the loss of business due to COVID restrictions. However, the council has rejected their bid to reissue their permit because the footpath falls into a residential zone.
A bit of a downer, really. We don't need any more hurdles to jump. It's been hard enough the last 2 years with the numbers and the state government's directives in terms of what we can and can't do during COVID.
In a statement, a council spokesperson said other hotels that operate on footpaths in residential zones have complied with permit and development application requirements. For Mark and Kylie to serve drinks outside, they will need to proceed with a development application, which involves a noise report, which costs thousands of dollars.
What's that going to say to us? That some patrons will make some noise in a relatively noisy environment without any real idea of how it's going to affect anybody?
A noise report could lead to neighbour objections, which would get them back to square zero. Although the good news is the hotel should be back open soon, with restrictions easing further by the end of the week.
We need to get it back and open, so we need further restrictions lifted. But outdoor dining is a normal part of Australian lifestyle, whether you're in the CBD or a fabulous town like Port Pirie.
Christian Komenos, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Residents in Wyola are urged to get their cleaning gear to help clear the city of rubbish this weekend. It's all part of Wyola's Clean Up Australia Day efforts.
It's an effort to help tidy up and beautify the Steel City. Residents from across Wyola encouraged to come down this Saturday to Civic Park for Clean Up Australia Day.
What we're doing is we're really providing resources for people to clean up Civic Park or anywhere really in Wyola that they've noticed there's an accumulation of rubbish.
They're asking everyone to roll up their sleeves, grab a bag and pick up rubbish and help the environment in the process, aiming to instill some civic pride in residents and get them thinking about keeping our surroundings regularly clean.
To keep Wyola beautiful, it is our responsibility to pick up rubbish and other items that make it look unsightly, but more importantly have an impact on our environment.
The event also hosting a free sausage sizzle run by Wyola's RFDS volunteers, with free drinks available for those who help out. Anyone interested is encouraged to register their attendance online or just attend a Civic Park car park on the day.
I'm quite happy for people to rock up on the day and register physically and take some gloves and some bags and head on out and clean up.
The clean-up event will be held between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Mark Zita, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us after the break. A Port Pirie woman delivers donated food to locals in need. And Port Lincoln children of all abilities have a crack at playing pickleball. Hello again. A Port Pirie woman has taken charity into her own hands by starting a food bank program to deliver leftover goods to families in need. The heartwarming initiative is taking the town by storm, with more than 70 families joining the list to receive food.
Helping those during tough times. Stevie Swenson has been delivering food to families in need for more than 3 weeks now, and her outreach to the community is growing every day. With the help of her son Levi, Stevie picks up food generously donated by Baker Bears and delivers them for up to 20 people per day.
With Baker Bears, I went in with my own proposal and what I was going to do with the food. I told them I was going to take it to people in need.
The amount of food she gets ranges from a small bag of bread to a full bootload of goods. Stevie says she will help as many people as she can.
You know, I'm like everybody else. I would need some help every time or every so often, bit here and there, and everyone needs it. And I don't feel bad for asking, and neither should anybody else.
It's not just food she brings to her customers, but hope and smiles too.
Every little bit helps everybody, and that's the way I look at it. And and I think it's a great thing that she's doing for the community. I really do.
Her work gathering so much attention, other businesses are starting to jump on board.
The owner of Happy Birds actually inboxed me and got in contact and asked if they could donate $5 $10 vouchers a week, and I jumped on that, and it's helped a fair few families.
And she's always on the lookout, finding more people she can feed. Christian Komenos, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The growing sport of pickleball has made its way to Port Lincoln. Organisation One Culture is holding a program aiming to encourage children and adolescents living with disabilities to take up new sports.
A combination of tennis, ping pong and badminton all in one. Pickleball has become one of the world's fastest growing sports, now offered in Port Lincoln.
So we're down to deliver two events. The first, we had a coach workshop for anybody interested in learning more about the sport that you see behind me in pickleball. It's a fairly new sport to Australia.
The team at One Culture offering up programs for children and young adults living with disabilities.
The big thing for us is giving everybody of all ages and abilities an opportunity to come out and have a go with whatever sport that they're keen for.
Pickleball, one of many sports the program has to offer.
A heap of sports actually. So we have soccer, futsal, basketball, tennis, and recently introduced swimming to our program. So we've quite a big portfolio.
One Culture will now deliver programs to townships across the state.
Port Lincoln's the first of our 5 regional visits in Term 1. Over the next 5 weeks, we're heading to 4 different regions throughout South Australia.
One Culture will be back in Port Lincoln for Term 3. Henry Millick, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Stay with us after the break. We'll have the cheapest and most expensive spots to fill up your car. And Alex Sykes will share all the weather details. Welcome back. Motorists' wallets will be hurting once again this week at the Bowser, with prices leaping further up across our viewing region. With the war now raging overseas, the outlook for fuel prices looks dire. With all the details, here's Edward McCarroll with this week's Fuel Watch.
At a time where Australian petrol prices were already significantly high because of the pandemic, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has only added fuel to the fire. Analysts from the fuel price database Motormouth say even with recent sanctions and the US releasing its oil reserves, Australia will continue to see the impact of the conflict on petrol prices in the coming weeks. With this, we are seeing red right across the board for unleaded this week. In regional areas, the average fuel price is only up by a few cents at this point, with centres like Port Augusta and Wyola now sitting at the $1.81 mark. Across the border in Broken Hill, it's a similar story with a slight rise to $1.85 per litre. It's in the metropolitan areas that we are seeing unleaded prices skyrocket. In Adelaide, it rose from $1.64 to $1.87. It's not much better for those filling up with diesel either. Once again, not a green arrow in sight. Port Pirie at $1.78 and Port Lincoln at $1.75 per litre. It's not much to be thankful for, but in Adelaide, diesel only rose by 1 cent. Continuing the gloomy outlook, in Broken Hill it will now cost you $1.83. When looking at autogas this week, average prices appear to have mostly hit a standstill in our region. It will still cost you $1.19 to fill up in Port Pirie or Kadina. In Port Lincoln, it's a bit cheaper at $1.12. Looking at Broken Hill, finally we have our first green arrow, but it really doesn't change much at all. And to fill up in Adelaide, autogas will now cost you 99.9 cents. So although the war is raging in Europe, it's hitting pretty close to home this week, your wallets.
Time now to take a look at what's happening in the weather. Here's Alex Sykes.
Thanks, Ruby, and what a beautiful Wednesday it was. Mainly fine conditions across the Gulf with not a drop of rain in sight. At 3 p.m, Wyola was 26, Port Lincoln was 23 and Clare was 29 degrees. Looking further out now, Port Augusta was mostly sunny and 31. Woodner reached a high of 33. Port Pirie topped 31 degrees, Adelaide was 24, Kadina reached 27 and Broken Hill was a top of 28 degrees. Taking a look at the satellite image now, cloud reforming in South Australia's eastern inland as moist easterly winds are feeding a weak trough, which is only causing light isolated showers. Cloud developing in the far west in a developing trough, which is causing the odd shower and storm to develop near the WA border, mostly clear elsewhere. Moving on to tomorrow's weather outlook now, and we'll start with the Gulf waters. Easterly winds 10 to 15 knots, seas around 1 metre, and south to southwesterly swell 1 to 2 metres. Mainly fine conditions across Thursday. Port Lincoln, partly cloudy, set to reach a high of 28 degrees. Mostly sunny in Cleve and a top of 28 degrees there. And Woodner will reach 36. Wyola sunny and 32. Port Augusta is set to be sunny and reach 35 degrees. And Kadina is set to top 32. Port Pirie will be sunny and 34. Clare to reach 32. And Broken Hill will be sunny and a top of 31 degrees. Taking a look further through the week now, mainly fine conditions across the region again on Friday. Cooper Pedy set to get to a high of 29, Port Augusta and Port Pirie both 27, Woodner, Kadina and Adelaide all to reach 25, Wyola to top 26. Taking a sneak peek at the weekend's forecast now, and partly cloudy, temperatures to sit in the mid to high 20s. Cooper Pedy 29, Port Augusta, Port Pirie and Kadina all to reach 25, Port Lincoln to top 22, Wyola 24. And similar conditions forecast for Sunday, Cooper Pedy 29, Broken Hill and Woodner both 26, Wyola 24, Adelaide is set to get to a high of 23. So it's looking like the rain will hold off for the weekend, Ruby, and that's all the weather from me for tonight. It's back to you.
Great, thanks for that, Alex. And that's all local news this Wednesday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates later. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.